All right, I will say good morning. So with your permission, we're just going to spend the few minutes we have this morning focusing on a beautiful piece by Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev. So it's not off topic, it's the same topic. I sent it out in the WhatsApp chat, and it's on the same thing. If you remember again, Reb Tzaddik in Os Mem Hey focused on the concept of Hashem Tzilcha. And if you remember again, he quoted from Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, and specifically Rabbi Levi Yitzchak's drushes, or what he calls Jerushim Lechanukah. So I thought, in order to more fully understand this idea, develop this idea, and also to see a beautiful piece from the Tzaddik Rabbi Levi Yitzchak right before Chanukah, we'll take a look at this idea. So I sent it out not last night, but the night before, 2 nights ago, in the WhatsApp chat. So you should have the PDF of the Kedushas Levi. So if you're following along in that PDF, it's page Reish Mem Gimel on the left-hand side, towards the end of the left-hand paragraph. Ukimoshe shamati mi bala Hashem tov al pasuk Hashem tzilcha. So Rabbi Levi Yitzchak says, I want to share with you now that which I heard from my Rebbe, from the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh. The pasuk says, quoting in Tehillim, Hashem tzilcha. So let's remember again, before we saw this piece of Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, we would assume that Hashem tzilcha means what? Hashem is your shade. But he writes, Kimosha Baal Chai Ot. So remember again, the Baal Shem Tov's beautiful. It's amazing how just a single nuanced change in definition creates a truly profound and groundbreaking theological idea. That somehow, again, if you recognize that tzel does not mean shade, but rather tzel could also mean shadow, suddenly again you develop a totally new dimension in the relationship between the Ribono Shel Olam and Klal Yisrael. So watch this. So it says Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, he says, Kimosha Baal Chai Omidei Tzel, the same way that when a person stands quote unquote by his shadow, Hine Kafitinu Osav Kin Misnonea Hatzel. Whatever I do, my shadow reacts in kind. Kain Kiviyachol Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo. The same thing is true with the Ribono Shel Olam. Kafi Maisim Shal Adam Hatachton, Kimo Kain Ose Imo Mileila Kiviyachol. Whatever man does here in this world, the Ribono Shel Olam reacts in the same way. Again, exactly what here, we'll say, Reb Tzaddik kind of alluded to this, not alluded, but quoted this idea shorthand. Here, Reb Levi Yitzchak Mamish develops it. So literally the concept of divine reciprocity means that the Ribono Shel Olam is my shadow. Whatever I do in this world, HaKadosh Baruch Hu reacts towards me in kind. He goes on, Dahainu, Im Yisnahig Adam Im Chavera B'midas HaChesed. So if I'm a Baal Chesed, if I do chesed with my chaverim, if I do chesed with my friends, I do chesed with my fellow human beings, Ken misnahig imo Hashem yisbarach kiviyachol. So if I'm a Baal Chesed, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to do chesed for me. Lochein, so turn the page about side, page Reish Mem Dalit. Lochein, ma ma'od hayaroi lehisnaig b'midas ha'chesed tamis. Rabbi Levi Yitzchak says, by the way, you see from here how important it is to be a Baal Chesed. But say, so again, even without this piece of Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, we all know the power and importance of chesed. But here Rabbi Levi Yitzchak explains why there is such an incredible emphasis. This is why I need to be a Baal Chesed. Why? Because if I am a Baal Chesed here in this world, then the Ribono Shel Olam does chesed with me. Kadosh Baruch Hu does chesed with me. Kimo sheyamshich alav gam ki midas hachesed. Va'az yetiv lo. So we'll say, if I do chesed with you, then Hashem Tzilcha, the Ribono Shel Olam is my shadow, and Kadosh Baruch Hu does chesed with me. He goes there. There's so much actually to speak about this. But whatever. We're going to get through this piece. He goes on Venira Gam Kain Shezer Ramzu Chacham Ba'amru Pasuk Vatem Hadveikim. So Rabbi Yitzchak says this is the deeper meaning of the pasuk that says Vatem Hadveikim B'Hashem Elokeichem Chaim Kulchem Hayom, which literally means Vatem Hadveikim. Davok means to cling. Right? Those of you who cling to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Chaim Kulchem Hayom, will experience life. What does this mean? Hidabek b'midosav. So he quotes over here the Gemara that says that what does it mean hadveikim? What does it mean to cling to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? The Gemara says, how can you cling to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? After all, the Torah calls HaKadosh Baruch Hu an eish ochla, an all-consuming fire, to which the Gemara says hidabek b'midosav, divine emulation. And so we'll say it's amazing how the Baal Shem Tov, Rabbi Yitzchak, according to the Baal Shem Tov, kind of weaves these concepts together. What does it mean divine emulation? Well, why do I have to emulate God? We'll say, right? It's like saying like I could look up to someone, but lav dafka, I want to emulate them. The Queen of England is a very important person. Is there a sort of emulating her? Is there some idea just because someone is chashav? So I mean divine emulation. Now I understand. Why am I supposed to emulate HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Because Hashem silcha. Because whatever I do, right? Whatever I do, the Rebbe Shalom doesn't kind. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells me what are the good things to do. So if I look at the Rebbe Shalom's midos and I emulate those, it becomes a full circle. If I look at what God does and I emulate that, then God will emulate me, emulating Him. And what will happen? The Rebbe Shalom will react towards me in kind. Hashem silcha, Hashem is my shadow. Whatever I do, there is divine reciprocity. So sorry, the Gemara goes on. Mahu rachum afata rachum, mahu chanon. Find the hainu beim sheyisnahig adam b'midas hachesed v'shifas chesed tered alav milamalo v'az yezivug v'zeu hadvekim. So this is beautiful. That in other words, if I act with chesed, then the Ribono Shel Olam acts with chesed. But I will say now the circle is even more profound because really the way it starts is Hakadosh Baruch Hu acts with chesed. I emulate the divine chesed, and once I become a Baal Chesed, the Ribono Shel Olam emulates me, emulating him. And as such, that's V'atem HaDevekim. That's the Devekus. That's the connection. That's the connectivity that's there. It's not just a relationship, but literally, again, it's this profound connection of me emulating God and God emulating me, emulating him. And therefore, ultimately, again, I have the benefit of tapping into his divine chesed. Such an incredible idea. So we'll say, so if you skip down a little bit, why is this here? Why is this here in Jerusalem Chanukah? Right? What does this have to do with anything? So we'll say, if you take a look, the Levi Yitzchak is developing here a much bigger topic of the distinction between what we call Zeh and Ko, which represent two different groupings of miracles. We're going to sidestep that a little bit. But if you still on page Reish Mem Daled, if you look to the left-hand paragraph, in the last couple of lines of that paragraph, he says, V'chein yesh b'nisei yisbarach. It's about 4 lines up from where the paragraph ends. V'chein yesh b'nisei yisbarach. Lefamim osim behagramos tachtonim al yidei ma'aseim hatovim. Ulefamim shakadish baruch hu maralanu nisim leniflos letova os rak machmas kodel ahavas li'amo Yisrael. Rabbi Yitzchak says so beautifully that there are two different types of miracles that often occur for Klal Yisrael. Sometimes there are miracles where ultimately, again, man takes action and HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kiviyachol follows in the footsteps of man. And then there are other miracles where the miracle really comes from the Ribono Shel Olam, that ultimately, again, the miracle is showered down upon us as an expression of love from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And man didn't really do all that much. He goes on, V'lachein, Kodem Matan Torah, page Reish Mem Hey, Kodem Matan Torah, Hayu Hanisim Rakbis Oros Mila Ela. So Levi says something so beautiful. He says, before Matan Torah, right, before Sinaitic revelation, the miracles we had were miracles ultimately, again, that came from the Ribono Shel Olam. I was supposed to say, if you think about the miracles before Matan Torah, they were pretty much all God. All God. You know, the greatest example of this is what? Kriyas Yamsuf. Right? What was Kriyas Yamsuf? Kriyas Yamsuf was splitting of the Red Sea. Hashem yilachem lachem ba'atem tacharishon. Moshe Rabbeinu says, do nothing. Just sit back, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to do the right. So remember again, even the narrative that Nachshon ben Aminadav ultimately goes into the water first, right? He has to go into the water. Remember again, that's a Gemara. That's not in the Psukim. I just want to point this out, that if you look at the narrative, ultimately, again, of Kriyas Yamsuf, as expressed in the Torah, is what Rabbi Levi Yitzchak calls Bishorusad his orus mila'ila, an awakening from above. It was HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Those are miracles that God did for us. Matan Torah, it's true, we said Nasav and Ishma, but at the end of the day, the nature of the miracles were things that the Ribono Shel Olam did for us. Interestingly enough, that changes after Matan Torah. Avali achar Matan Torah, dahainu b'mei Mordechai ve'Esther v'domehen. We'll say after Matan Torah, he quotes over here by Purim, and again, obviously we're going to see by Hanukkah as well. Kimo shekimo is arusa dilatasa kach nisorer milamala hamshachas hashefa mimeno yisparach. Ukvar kasafti shezenikra b'shemko. Shabbos says, so again, leaving aside Purim right now, we'll focus a bit more on Hanukkah. Says Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, all of his changes after Matan Torah. After Matan Torah, the world is introduced to the nature, to a miracle that begins with man's actions and then is reciprocated by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem Tzilcha. So Rabbi say to kind of close this out. So says Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, and what is one of the greatest examples of this type of miracle, where ultimately, again, the miracle begins with man's actions, and only then does the Ribono Shel Olam replicate what man does. Hashem Tzilcha, we'll say Chanukah. Chanukah. What is Chanukah? So remember, again, we focus on the nace of the Pach Shemen. We focus on the nace of the little cruse of oil that burned for 8 days. But say, but why did that oil burn for 8 days? Because the Chashmonaim took the step to light it. In other words, say, that miracle is not a Kriyas Yamsuf miracle, right? It's not the pshat that the Jews sat back and the Rebbe Shalom did a miracle. It's that the Jews did something, right? The Maccabim, the Chashmonaim, Klal Yisrael did something, engaged in dynamic activity, fought a war, fought back against their oppressors, walked into a ransacked Beis HaMikdash and reignited a flame and put things back together and tried to go ahead and recreate some semblance of normalcy for Klal Yisrael once again. So we'll say all of that happens first, and then only afterwards is there an incredible miracle. Only afterwards does the miracle occur. Says Reb Levi Yitzchak. We'll say, you understand? So I just want to point out, I know sometimes I think to myself, it saddens me that we do this at 5:45 in the morning, when people are it looks like we're awake, but Pashtus, that's a suffix if we're actually awake or not. Because I will say, these are the things that are life-changing. These are the things that create your religious identity. These are the things that make us who we are. These are the most yesodistic things that we'll learn in life. And the challenge just is, we're just waking up as we're learning them. But you understand, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak just taught us, I will say, one of the most important pieces in the entirety of Hasidic literature, you just learned at 5:45 in the morning. The notion of Hashem Tzilcha. Whatever you want out of the Ribono Shel Olam, you first have to model that same behavior. You want chesed from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, be a Bal Chesed. You want Rachmanis, be a Rachamon. You want tzedakah, meaning you want to receive the Ribono Shel Olam tzedakah, be about tzedakah. Whatever you want from the Ribono Shel Olam in this world, you must model that same behavior. And says Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, that is the entirety of Chanukah. Do you know what we celebrate on Chanukah? We celebrate on Chanukah, says Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, Hashem Tzilcha. That's Chanukah. Chanukah is Hashem Tzilcha, not Hashem is your shadow. But ultimately, again, instead of not Hashem is your shade, but Hashem is your shadow. Hashem is your shadow. So what happened on Chanukah? We engaged in miraculous activity. What was the miraculous activity? A small band of soldiers rose up against a mighty fighting force. What happened on Chanukah? We decided to light a menorah even though it made absolutely no sense. In the world of Teva, it made absolutely no sense. But yet we still did it. And the moment that you take miraculous activity or miraculous behavior, engage miraculous behavior in this world, the Ribono Shel Olam reacts in kind. That, says Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, is the entirety of Chanukah. So as I say now, we see, so just to kind of close this out, so remember again just how we got here. We got here by Tzidkas HaTzadik, right? Remember again, so the Tzaddik quoted this concept, ultimately again, of Hashem Tzilcha, quoted Rabbi Levi Yitzchak in the Drushim Chanukah. Now we saw Rabbi Levi Yitzchak's piece in the Vosei. So now we close out Sif Mem Hey or Os Mem Hey and Tzidkas HaTzadik, but also see amazingly enough Hashgacha Pratis, this concept developed in the midst of Chanukah, mamish in the midst of Chanukah. So at least now we have this incredible yisod, not just an insight for Chanukah, but an insight for life as well. Shkayach Bosei.